All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Biddle, and I'm really excited to welcome you to the Dragons Safety and Risk Management webinar this evening. Like I mentioned, it would be great if you all could write in the chat where you're calling in from this evening and which Dragons destination you have on your mind, whether you or your child is signed up for a program or you're considering a destination. It would just be nice to know where you're thinking about. Alrighty, and without further ado, I am going to allow us to get started with some introductions.
Hey everybody, my name is Dave Haffeman. I'm the Director of Risk Management. Thank you all for joining us here. It's great to see such robust attendance. I've been with Dragons since 2015. I started as an instructor in Latin America in our Bolivia and Peru programs, worked several programs over the years, and worn a lot of different administrative hats as well. So I've been in the risk management position since 2018. Yeah, so I'm excited to talk with you about some risk management considerations for programs.
Great.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, go ahead, Aaron. You should go.
Oh, yeah, sorry. My name's Aaron Slosberg. I'm the Director of Programming at Where There Be Dragons. So my role is to oversee the quality and consistency across all our different program areas. In addition to our open enrollment programs, which I think most folks here are interested in our open enrollment programs, which are our summer and gap semesters, we also work with about 50 different partner universities and schools to run what we call our partnership or custom programs as well. So lots of different programs happening throughout the year. And it's exciting to be involved with all those programs. I've been at Dragons for 15 years, and so also have worn a lot of different hats and love talking about our program. So it's nice to be here, and hopefully this is an informative session for everyone. And if anything comes up that needs more attention or more in-depth conversation, we're always, the three of us, Alex, Dave, and I are always happy to hop on a call or communicate over email to follow up on any specific questions too. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, also just to say, I live in Santa Cruz, California. And I saw some folks in the chat are from the Bay Area as well. So hi to all the other California folks here.
Yeah, a lot of Bay Area representation. Look at that.
Yeah, represent. That's awesome. And again, my name is Alex. I am the outreach manager at Dragons, and I help students and families find the right programs for them and share more about Dragons. And so I'm talking with students and families about risk management questions often, and heard lots of questions. And that's why we brought this to Dave and Aaron today to really present on that and address those questions. So the presentation this evening is going to be about 45 minutes long. Dave's going to walk us through our approach to safety and risk management at Dragons. And then we're going to leave time at the end for Q&A. Now, if you have questions that come up, while the presentation is happening, please drop those in the chat. I'll be monitoring that. And if it's relevant to what Dave's talking about, I'll interrupt him and ask the question right there. And if we don't get to it during the presentation, we'll save it for the end. Or you're welcome to save your question for the end if you want to unmute yourself and ask. That's totally fine too. Yeah, and then if you can just, again, stay muted throughout the presentation, that would be helpful. Yeah, so all right, everyone, enjoy. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, here's what we're going to do tonight, or today, depending on where you're coming from. I want to start out by talking about our approach to risk management, our philosophy on risk management, and then lay the groundwork talking about our proactive layers of risk management, which is really the bulk of how we approach these programs. We'll then move into how we choose our program locations. We often get a lot of questions about that. And then talking about more of our reactive type of risk management and how we respond to incidents. Later, we'll dive into considerations for preparing to travel. And then talking about some of the types of incidents that we sometimes see. And then, like Alex said, we'll save time for question and answer. You can go ahead and advance it. All right, so this is our risk management statement. You can find it on our health and safety page on our website. I wanted to start with this because it really kind of sets ourselves apart from just your average teen travel program, because it emphasizes how we really focus on transformative programs and student growth. As with any endeavor we undertake in life, there's always going to be inherent risk involved. And risk isn't necessarily a bad thing or a bad word. Risk is engaging in an activity that has the potential for either loss or gain. So what we want to do through proactive planning and expert leadership is to really approach these risks and help students navigate through them to maximize positive outcomes. We say risk management is 90% proactive. So while incidents may occur, we invest so much in risk management planning at all levels to mitigate the impact of those. You can go ahead and advance it. So proactive risk management, I want to touch on these four main components as we go along. Program design, our communities, which are huge, instructors, and then administration. Go ahead and advance it. We have uniquely crafted itineraries, and so really no two itineraries are exactly the same. It's not to say that we're just picking random places and going to different places every time new, but we generally rotate through different communities or treks or guest speakers, and I'll talk about a little bit how we do that and why we do that later on. But so it's to say that it may take a lot of time and effort to uniquely craft these itineraries each time. But in doing so, this really ensures that we're considering how our instructors, how our communities, and student groups will all interact depending on that particular program session. We're constantly adapting to changes in our environment rather than having like a set stamp where each program is the same and we're just running a bunch of programs that are the same over and over again. So we really want to assess each program individually before we send them out. We take it slow. So in order to create these incredibly impactful experiences, we want to make sure that we're creating space for meaningful reflection and dialogue. The students will meet with their instructors every day to brief the day or debrief the day. These are really group-focused programs. And so rather than just speeding through and hitting the highlights and going on to the next thing, we want to slow it down so that we're aware of our environment, that we all know what we're engaging in, and so that participants feel comfortable engaging in those environments. Our itineraries are also flexible in that we're able to respond to changes as they occur while the program is in the field. So issues can arise, and those can either be external, like climactic or political conditions, or internal, based on group morale or health or individual student goals and desires. And so we want to be able to respond to those and still provide exceptional level of programming and safety. And by having such a strong investment in these areas, we have a broad program menu, so to speak, that we can change things and still be very comfortable with that change that we're making. Our group sizes are small. We have generally 12 students to 3 instructors. So we want to maintain that 4-to-1 student to instructor ratio. This allows us the opportunity to address individual student needs as they happen. I had mentioned we have group daily briefings where we talk about the business of the day. We really want to be in touch with student health, student emotion, to be able to follow up with those students individually, and generally just creating an environment where students feel comfortable developing that relationship with their instructors. And finally, we have a leadership progression. We want to make sure that students are building skills throughout their program. We start with a skill acquisition phase where the instructors are really hands-on, teaching students about the communities and cultures that they'll pass through, the cultural do's and don'ts. Then we'll move on to a practicing phase where they can feel the instructors kind of stepping back a little bit, but all the while maintaining that risk management level of safety and risk management oversight. But the students are stepping into a little bit more leadership roles and taking a little bit more agency in their program. And then we move into the expedition phase, where depending on the length of the program, it could be a few days or a week or longer, where the students are really taking on important roles, learning how to maybe contract transportation or talk with local guides or figure out when they're going to do guest speakers. We really want to make that experience feel like their own. And so by doing so, we really we want to get away from that provider receiver mindset. We want students to feel engaged in their program, a part of their program, because students aren't just passive observers. They're actually a part of this risk management picture as well. And so when we know that they've built the skills to travel in these areas, they're not going to be confident just in this program area, but they're able to take those skills anywhere they might travel later on. You can go ahead and advance it. All right, communities. Communities are huge for us. They are the backbone of what we do. When we design our programs, we start from the most fundamental layer, our communities. Without the support of the community, we wouldn't be able to be as responsive and knowledgeable to regional risks and changing conditions. So we want to create long-lasting relationships with these communities, where the community feels part of our program, and it's not just like a separate component. It's interwoven together. So we have country coordinators who are visiting our program locations on a regular basis. They're providing trainings for homestay families. They're meeting with guest speakers and independent study project mentors. And a lot of times they're just going and just creating a group community get together just to continue building that relationship. We don't want this to seem like a provider receiver type of program. We want them to feel a part of our program, what makes these programs special. Over the years, we've had many instructors start out as homestay families or siblings or independent study project mentors. For example, our Asia program director, Schwer, her family was and still is a homestay family. And her father is an independent study project mentor where students go to learn skills from him. Our Indonesia country coordinator, our admin country coordinator, Lutfi, she started out as a homestay sibling over the years, learning and exchanging with students as they pass through Dragons. And so now she knows that experience really well as an instructor, as a member of admin. And as you can see in this photo, we got Babacar here in Senegal and his extended family, one of our most veteran instructors. So we know it can feel like a lot sending your child away from home, but it's important for you to know that they're not just leaving your home, they're coming and visiting our home as well. I think you can go ahead and advance that. Yeah. Instructors. They are an amazing, accomplished group of people. Like I mentioned, we have that 4-to-1 student to instructor ratio. so that we're able to build those relationships with students, understand how they're feeling about their physical and mental health, and just provide an overall amazing experience. These folks have tremendous professional and personal experience. We're not just looking for an instructor who's wants to have like a really cool travel summer job during college. These are people who have started NGOs and nonprofits. They're business owners in their communities. They're experienced trekking guides, or if they're not from those local areas, they've spent considerable time there and they have local language skills and they know how to navigate logistically and they understand the cultural nuances of these places. We want to create a feeling of collaboration and empowerment and in transparency with our instructors. They bring a ton of experience to these programs, and we really value that. We want to know their interpretation of local risk management issues and to be able to respond to those in the field. So it's a really collaborative effort when we're designing itineraries that, with these three instructors, based on their professional experience, we want them to add in pieces to those itineraries so that they're able to speak to them, that they feel passionate about what they're doing, and that they know, like really, really, really know what that itinerary feels like and how to navigate it. We also have regular staff trainings. So before our summer programs, we go out to California for 2 weeks. Everybody comes out. We have this amazing like educational session talking about student group management, risk management, academic sessions, and all the like. So it's a great time for us to have that cultural bonding piece for instructors to meet folks from other regions as well, so that they feel a part of this community. And it's just an amazing experience. Before other smaller programs, like our school partnership programs, we'll do smaller trainings. Before our semester programs, we do trainings. So we grab our instructor teams and admin come together. We have online refreshers where instructors are able to go through different modules, individual touch points throughout the year. Yeah, so there's a lot of touch points where we're having staff trainings. You can go ahead and advance it. All right, we got this happy group of folks here. This is our administration. Starting from like the first touch point that you have, we'll be, going through that admissions process. We want to make sure that our programs are transparent to you. If you ever have any questions, please reach out to us, and we're happy to hop on a phone call or exchange some emails to help you feel comfortable knowing about the program. You'll also receive a course preparation manual and a parent support kit after you're admitted into the program. And in those manuals, there's going to be a lot of program-specific information, risk management information, and just what to expect as a parent, in addition to what you'll see here in the webinar. So I encourage you to go to your Students My Dragons account and Resources tab, and you'll be able to see those two documents. But yeah, our admin team, also incredible group of people. We all have relevant field experience, either with dragons or another organization. And so we really understand the issues that are happening in those communities. We have been there before. We've led these programs. We know what it's like to lead students in the field and what they're experiencing. So we're able to really communicate and be on that same level with instructors as that's happening. So like Alex, for example, has worked programs in Guatemala with dragons and with other programs, companies all over the world. Aaron, in addition to working as instructor in many programs, has helped develop our Indonesia program years ago. Like I mentioned, I've been an instructor in Latin America on many programs. But even still, most recently, we really want to get our admin staff into the field. So I worked a school partnership program in China just last year, as well as many site visits, because it's important for us to have those continuous touch points so that we don't, that we're still on understanding with the instructors, so that we don't lose touch with what's happening in the field, and to continue to have those relationships. So we encourage all our admin to do site visits, staying with those communities, doing independent study projects just like students do, so that we can really speak to these programs. Our admin is global. We're all around the world. Even though we are based and traditionally have been based in Boulder, Colorado, we occupy really every major time zone. That's incredibly helpful. So not just having admin staff living and working in our program areas, but if issues do arise in the field, we can be communicating with you during that time of day, and then we can easily pass that off to different admins, so we can continually work around the clock to resolve issues and follow up on things if need be. A few different admin types I wanted to mention. We have our country coordinators. So those are our folks who live and work in those program locations. And so you have, like Tindy in China, Noya in Taiwan, Juan Diego in Peru, Nuruddin in Morocco. They are from those communities and from those areas. And so they're continuously in contact with communities and mentors and guest speakers, and really just helping facilitate how those programs are going. They're also a wealth of information for risk management, so that we can, in addition to news outlets and travel advisories that we'll talk about, we're able to talk with them about how those nuances, risks, are actually impacting our programs and what modifications we need to make. Then we have our program directors. Those oversee regional areas. So, like Lucho in Latin America or Schwer in Asia. Those are folks that you'll often talk to when if your child is in the field and you have questions, or if there's anything that we need to let you know about in the field. Those people will often be the ones who are talking with you. And then we have our risk management team. We affectionately call ourselves DIRT, the Dragons Instant Response Team. We are a rotating group of admin who are trained up on risk management specific and in-field support issues. And so we are on call, and from week to week, we rotate so that there's somebody always available to answer emergency calls. And then also you might hear from one of us in addition to the program director, because we're supporting that entire container as well. So you might hear from the program director, you might hear from me, and then I might pass it off to Aaron, and you might continue a conversation with Aaron. But we're always available to support you. Go ahead. Oh, at International SOS. That's another thing I wanted to mention. International SOS isn't a part of Dragon. It's a separate company. There's this huge medical and security advisory team that have offices all over the world. So what's great about them is that they provide security and medical services. Dragon, it's important to note, just doesn't have an internal medical director, but we have International SOS advise us on certain issues. It's great because instructors can call up International SOS, often an office in their region, but they also have their main headquarters in the United States. And yeah, they can talk to doctors or nurses that can consult with them on confirming a diagnosis or a medication. If they're in remote locations, they're able to provide a remote prescription or recommendation on what to do next. And even we can put them in touch with the local doctor if we need additional consultation. They also provide emergency evacuations if need be as well, or just to consult on security concerns that we might have as well. All right. Okay, how we choose programs. Like I mentioned, it really starts with communities. And, for example, one of our most recent programs in Taiwan, now it's about 4 years or so, Shui, our China program director, she's from China, but over the pandemic had been living in Taiwan. A lot of our China instructors live in or are from Taiwan. Um, and so they have a lot of close relationships with those communities. And what they'll do is spend a ton of time scouting and researching and building more information. And those instructors that we have from those regions are also providing that information, so that we're building this robust program. And then over the years, we'll continue to add that as new instructors come in and just institutional knowledge is created. We make sure to do the full evaluation, looking into what transportation looks like, medical facilities and resources and their quality and access to them, what communication looks like, or what locations there will be a lack of communication access, looking at how we might do evacuations depending on at what point and where they might be. So we really do a thorough research and evaluation on all of our program locations before those programs go in the field, and periodically even review those as conditions change. Travel advisories, we're looking at mainly like the U.S. State Department is the main travel advisory. We're also, ISOS also puts out local and regional advisories. OSAC is a big one as well. So looking at a lot of those bigger governmental advisories, we look at local news sources, but then also, like I mentioned, from our country coordinators, our instructors, our experience in the area, our communities, and we're really comparing all of that information. So whereas travel advisories do change, right? So you might see your program is in a level 1. If you're familiar with State Department advisories, a level 2 or a level 3. And we want to just make clear that, if your program is in a level 3 and that program is still going, it's not because we're disregarding the importance of that travel advisory. We're comparing, like a lot of times those travel advisories are broad strokes. And it's important to take that information into account, but it might not reflect the local communities or particular regions within that country. So whereas like a city might have a higher crime rate way over here, we might not be going there at all. It's in these communities that we are, where people are just, we understand these communities. It just feels like going to a place that is home to us. And so we understand those resources, we understand those risks, and we understand that that is not impacting our program. But if those advisories do change, we'll definitely take that into account, and we're able to respond to that. Finally, we want to ask ourselves, should we go? It's important for us to not exceed our capacity to run programs. We're comfortable with the size that we're at. We don't run, like 12 programs to Cambodia and, 10 programs to Peru. That would stretch our instructor community pretty thin. And it would overwhelm our communities as well. And so we don't want to feel like a transactional thing that we're just doing over and over and over. We want to be able to slow it down, respond to issues, make adjustments, and really invest in our communities and instructors each time. And looking at the ethics of travel as well. We want to be cognizant of our impact on these local communities. So we want to have that mutual relationship there as well. All right, go for it. Okay, we talked about proactive risk management, 90%, right? We got what? I said we have 15 minutes left, so 90-10 ratio. I hope I'm sticking to. Yeah, so when we respond to incidents, our instructors are going to be, of course, the first people that are responding. They have at minimum a level of a wilderness first aid, often having a wilderness first responder, some EMTs in there. And in general, like I talked about, just a lot of experience in these regions, but also they have experience leading groups, so they understand, about mental health crisis and de-escalation as well. It's important to note that Dragons is not a wilderness therapy program. So while our instructors do have experience, and they're really experts in leading complicated group dynamics, and basic de-escalation and mental health support techniques, we are not therapists. So absolutely, if students have seen therapists and have to see a mental health professional, totally fine. We can work with you in a lot of those things. But we will be in touch to make sure that the program you choose is right for you at that time. Most of the issues that we see are minor. They really are. And so they're easily resolved in the field without professional consultation. If it's something that exceeds our instructor's capacity to handle, of course, we'll see a medical facility if that's the need there. Our instructors are trained to a medical facility checklist to make sure that the correct questions are being asked, the documentation is being collected, that we're gathering all the information that we can pass on to you. And also, it's really helpful that the instructors know these areas and speak that language so that they can translate and advocate for students. So following the visit as well, we have ISOS, and if there's any question about a diagnosis or a medication, we can always consult with them, or we can put the ISOS in touch with that doctor as well, or that hospital. Instructors will write up an official case report and send that to our risk management team and the program director. We'll review that, and then depending on that case, we'll provide guidance to them. And we'll continue to have a conversation through that issue. So then we'll reach out to you as emergency contacts, who's listed as the emergency contact on that student's form, to relay the news and the plan. We'll work with the family to bring in any additional resources that are needed, whether that's a consultation with a mental health professional, or maybe you want to talk with your home physician to relay that information and get advice there. We can do that. Just note that we want to make sure that we're not having ongoing mental health visits during the program from beginning to end. But if something happens that arises in the field, that would be a better touch point, we can make that happen. It's also important to mention, we don't reach out to families for every single blister, splinter, bad day, or bout of diarrhea. Taking into account the age of the student, so if they're 18, we may not reach out as much. Whereas if a student is a minor, we'll be able to be in more frequent communication, because we all want to take into account that student, if they're over 18, their particular desires as well and comfort level with that situation. And so, if there's ongoing health concerns, visits to medical facilities, ongoing issues, we'll be in touch with you to let you know how things are going. It's important to note, like, this is a tech-free program as well, so students don't have access to their cell phones every single day. But if there is an issue, we want to make a call available for you all to connect. The Yak board is where you'll see most of the course communication. We often say in these programs, no communication generally means a good thing, right? So you'll see posts and blogs and things. You can even see some of our previous programs or current programs now if you want to see what that looks like. If you have a question about your participant, your child in the field, go ahead and give us a call in the office. Alex will pick up the phone or forward a call to me, or we're happy to jump on a call and or exchange some emails. We can pass on that information to your child in the field, and then vice versa too. If anything happens, like I mentioned, we'll be in touch with you. I think we can move on. Yeah. Insurance. So yeah, in the course preparation manual, like I mentioned, there's going to be information on this. We encourage you to look into trip cancellation insurance if it's right for you. It is not something that we sell. It's an external thing, so you can find it. We have some recommendations, but you can find it wherever you want. Things do happen. Kids might have to come home, whether that's a behavioral dismissal or a health issue, or maybe it just doesn't feel right for that time, or maybe something happens back home that the student needs to come attend to. It's very rare, but it does happen. And so when folks have trip cancellation insurance, they're generally fairly thankful that they did get it, because Dragons doesn't reimburse that tuition if we do not cancel that program. Supplemental travel health insurance as well. So look at your provider, what you have for out of network, how that might work. There are some packages out there that are great for just supplemental health insurance for that period of time where that person's traveling. I mean, healthcare in the places that we travel is pretty low cost. Great care, but just costs are cheaper places. So a lot of times when I'm chatting with parents and I'm sending them the receipts and things because they want to reimburse their insurance cost, they take a look at the bill and they're like, whoa, maybe it doesn't even bother, like it's not even worth the effort to send it in because it's just $100. But still, things can happen. Maybe there's an overnight clinic stay. There's, the rolled ankle that needs an X-ray. Things can happen. And so if it works for you, it might be worth the peace of mind to have supplemental health insurance. And then international SOS, I just wanted to mention again, international SOS is going to help with emergency evacuations. They would be qualified as true emergencies. And so they'll often, that would be like an evacuation from where the group is to the point of international destination departure or a definitive medical facility. So not like you're not going home to Chicago on international SOS dime. And then for routine evacuations or medical visits, Dragons pays for the transportation to that medical clinic, but participants pay for their medical costs. We'll make sure to take documentation of all those receipts and invoices and send them to you and give them to the participant for safekeeping. Next one. Medication-specific conditions. We are not, like I mentioned before, we're not doctors, so we can't give medical advice. We rely on local providers and international SOS for that. So, even if a student has your typical traveler's diarrhea, we will make sure to have them seen by a local physician or get a recognition from international SOS to take that azithromycin or ciprofloxacin that they brought with them, that prescription medication, just to make sure that that is the correct medication and we're treating that issue correctly. That's not to say that we're going to ask them, if they're taking any normal medication they take on their daily lives back home, that's for them to take as is. But if it's in response to a health issue like traveler's diarrhea, we want to make sure that's correct. Vaccinations, we don't require, Dragons does not require you to get a vaccination, only if that is required by that country for entry. So this is, again, up to you. Like we get some questions every once in a while, like what should we get? We'll direct you to the CDC and the health page for that country. Now we can provide a little bit of context, what that looks like, but we can't tell you what you should and shouldn't do. A lot of questions that we get are like around, malaria or rabies. a lot of those vaccinations are great to have. You know, like rabies, again, is not that common. It's to get like bitten or scratched by the kitty that you're playing with or the puppy that you're playing with. That's generally how it happens. But still, it's one of those things that has a high risk if left unattended. So if you plan on traveling to other places, and you want that peace of mind to have that rabies pre-exposure vaccine, great. It does help a lot with like the logistical follow-up with it, but generally it's treatable in country. It just might mean missing a few program days here or there while you got to go to the clinic and get another shot or, you know, whatever it might be. So we have more information about that in the CPM. I digress. Um, Allergy management. Yeah, we're able to accommodate allergies and diets mostly on our programs. But we really want to make sure that that program is right for you. So if you are severely allergic and anaphylactic to peanuts, you probably might not want to go to Senegal. It's just might be something that we just can't control. Um, we have had students with peanut allergies go to Senegal, while not as severe, and manage it safely. Our instructors are really good at allergy management. You know, they're going into kitchens, are to talk with the chefs and such to make sure that there's not food contamination. They're, you know, like our country coordinators I mentioned are meeting with homestay families to make sure that they understand student diets, and they do. Over the years they get it. So they are able to accommodate those foods as well. Now they're not going to make, you know, host families aren't going to make your special thing that you get at home all every Wednesday, of course. You know, this is the local food, but we're going to make accommodations to make sure that you're safe. And then let's see, other medication considerations. What was I going to say about that? I don't recall. I think I already covered that. I just got ahead of myself.
Maybe traveling with medications, Dave?
Yeah, that's a great one. That is what I was going to say. So we don't hold information about restrictions on medications to countries. I mean, some we do, and we know through experience, but we want you to look at the medications that you're taking and to look at that country's customs page to make sure that there aren't any restrictions. Some common ones are ADHD medications, which are classified as amphetamines sometimes and are prohibited in some countries. So like in Japan and Taiwan there and China, there are some heavier restrictions against that, and you need to do some certain things to make sure they're approved. So we want to make sure that you are taking care of that. Make sure that it's in the correct container with that student's name, in your carry-on bag so that doesn't get lost, because it can be challenging to find certain medications in those regions. And make sure that you have a sufficient amount for that program duration. Yeah, that was it. I think so. Okay, types of incidents really quickly. Ooh, I'm at my time. Like I
You're
mentioned,
good, Dave. Take your time.
GI issues are probably the most common. Doesn't matter who you travel with, where you go, our guts react to different environments. And so, yeah, I kind of talked about how we approach these in the field. And yeah, if a GI issue persists and is accompanied with other symptoms, we definitely want to see have these people seen at a medical facility and checked out, receive appropriate medication and treatment. Generally, it's, you know, going to be a bummer for a couple days, right? But you're back on your feet and you're enjoying the rest of the program. Other medical conditions usually comes in second as far as what we see, and that can be anything from the weird random rash. Could be like your flu or fever, or allergies, right? Again, generally pretty mild and easily treated with in-country medical consultation or field intervention. And then behavioral and mental health. I know these are two separate things, but yeah, we do see behavioral issues and we have behavioral management plans. And so as these things come arise. And that's why we have these small student group to instructor ratios, because we want to be able to address things as they come up. And we understand that these young people are on this journey of learning, and we want to work with them on that. So addressing issues early on, and if it becomes an issue, we're going to reach out to the families at home to help provide some context and support there. But yeah, they can result in dismissals, and we have that in our course preparation manual, so I won't jump into that too much. You can read about it. And then mental health as well, I already mentioned. We're not therapists, but we have some experience, and if need be, we can bring in a family therapist. But yeah, it's not an ongoing treatment. So if it does become to a point where it's untenable, we will work with you on bringing that person home. And injuries are rare. Like, it really doesn't happen that often. Sure, you might cut your fingers cutting the avocado, or families, you know how you are. If your child is the rambunctious one that's always climbing and jumping off things, yeah, we get some twisted ankles and things like that. But yeah, generally based on the pace of our programs and the activities that we choose, the actual real injuries are pretty rare. Yeah, so that's generally what we see on our programs. I think I'm gonna wrap it up there, and so we can save some time for questions. Thanks. I see some chats there. I'm not focusing on it. I think Aaron's answering it. That's awesome.
No, that's great. I'm actually, thank you, Dave, so much, by the way. There are some questions in the chat that I'm gonna pass along to you. And I guess I'll promote to the slide. I could also stop sharing if that's helpful. Maybe I'll stop so we can all see one another. All right. So the first one is, if my child needs regular medications, do the instructors help make sure these meds are taken regularly?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Thank you for bringing that up. So yeah, it also depends on the age of the student and the type of medication, their comfort level with it. So what that would look like is, you'll have like a medication form that you submit during the admissions process, so we know that what you're bringing to prepare for that. And then the students will meet individually with instructors one-on-one within like the first 24 hours of the program, talk about how they're feeling, like what their goals are, and also talk about their medications. A lot of times you get that travel medication, the kids like, I have no idea what that is. And so the instructors are there to help them with that. If it's more like ADHD medication or things like that, we want to judge where the student's at. A lot of times the kids like, I need help. Like, you got to help me out every single day. And then sometimes the kids like, I have this little pill container. I take this, and this, and this, and knows all about it. So we just want to make sure that the student is not managing all of their medication. So the instructors will collect that and hold on to it and have a certain designated person's medication, and make sure they're checking in and giving out a certain amount of medication for that particular period of time. Because the last thing we want to do is have a participant lose the medication, have it get damaged, stolen, and those kind of things just happen. Instructors are just more aware of how to keep track of these things.
Yeah, great. Next question. If a host family member has or comes down with a communicable disease, virus, what happens for the participant? Do they stay in the host family, or are they moved?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a respiratory viral illness protocol, formerly known as the COVID protocols, in response to CDC recommendations and industry best practices. We have a lot of locations in these communities, right? So it's not just, we like to rotate up our families as well, so that we're not just going to the same place, that we're expanding our family support network. So if an issue happens, whether that's a health issue or whatever it might be, we can move that student to a different host family. We also have program house locations in a lot of these communities as well. And then there's also just general lodging and hotels. So we want to be responsive to that if we do see a communicable disease issue, to be able to move them. But before that even happens, like before they get into that homestay communities, our country coordinators and our instructors are visiting these communities. They're checking in with the homestay families, just having that relationship again, seeing how things are going, um, seeing who's maybe coming and visiting or going that particular time while our programs are there. So we can check and see like, oh yeah, okay, so and so's not feeling well. Maybe we'll go with this family this time.
Thanks, Dave. And there's a related question to that, how we choose and vet homestay families.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, um, we've been operating in these communities for a long time. And these are families of our instructors and our country coordinators. Um, and so we go through a training process with our homestay families before they're able to host students. And we have a whole checklist that we go through, learning how to host families, who host students, who's allowed in the homes, at what times, what the rooming situation needs to look like, how we prepare food, what transportation looks like, who's allowed to be with these students at certain times, and then having periodic check-ins as well. Instructors will be in those same communities. So even though a student may be down the road in this homestay family, instructors are making sure to do rounds and checking in, seeing how things are going and the like as well. Um, so yeah, a lot of touch points and trainings with homestay families throughout the year.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dave. There's a couple more questions related to homestays that we'll address, and then we'll move on to some of the other questions. But if you can touch on like, is there anything we do to like assign students to certain host families, like if they would be a good fit together? If you can touch on that. And Sarah commented that she assumes host families are highly vetted and there will not be issues with drug use or alcohol. For example, there won't be a teen or parent who shares drugs or alcohol with their child. So just commenting on those two things, if you can.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see, hold on. Vetting process. Yeah, so we want to take into account, like in the admissions process, what the student goals are in their applications, and then uh, so students will also have a pre-course phone call with their instructors to learn about their hopes and desires and anxieties. Like I mentioned, in that first couple days, instructors are meeting with students to talk one-on-one with how they're feeling. And so along the way, we're building an understanding of what your child goals are, anxieties, and things like that. And so we're able to kind of now we can't, it's their families, right? They're dynamic groups of people, just like you and your families back home. And so we can't just necessarily take a student and just give them exactly what they want. I want two siblings who are 5 and 3 years old and they have a cat. But we're going to try and get as close as we can to that, matching student interest with the type of family that we have. Or if there's diets and families who are more knowledgeable about certain cooking and diet considerations and things like that. Yeah, we talk about alcohol and drug use with families as well. These are really responsible members of the community, and really just often not alcohol users in general. And so, yeah, we want to make sure that they're aware of alcohol use. Now, there's always going to be the occasional wedding and things like that, but we really talk with instructors or with homestay families about what those situations look like and how appropriate that is. Like if you're going to a wedding, like you have a designated driver or transportation, like nobody's driving under the influence. Like, yeah, if you have a couple drinks, fine, because that's like a celebration for your family. But also families take it really seriously. They know what's called our red rules and that students aren't allowed to use alcohol or drugs on program. I mean, I don't know if you have seen this before, but we got some great videos. There's one on like homestay families where you see some of our homestay families talking about their experiences, and it's really, really sweet because they're talking about like, I love these kids. Like they're like, I treat them like my own, and it's so sad when they leave. Like they are really watching out for these kiddos when they're in their communities.
I'll include that video when I send the recording. I'm gonna turn the next question to Aaron. Give you a little break, Dave. Uh, thanks so much. So Aaron, are there any locations where we're worried that might be at risk this year given the current geopolitical landscape?
Yeah, it's a good question. We actually just sent an email out earlier today, and maybe some of you received it last week. It kind of went out in two different batches, depending on if you're enrolled or not currently enrolled. Kind of addressing some of the uncertainty that is going on globally right now. Of course, the world has been undergoing a lot of global uncertainty the last 10 years or whatever time frame you want to put that on. But I think particularly since the US administration change, we've just seen a lot of policy shifts that can create a lot of uncertainty and anxiety about what are the ramifications for that for traveling internationally. So we've been actually polling our contacts in the different areas, in addition to kind of the formal outlets of looking at international security reports and actual, more objective metrics of changes in the places that we're traveling. We've also been in touch with our community contacts, our country coordinators who are living in those areas. And the message that we've got back resoundingly across all of the places that we travel is that we haven't experienced any changes or any anticipated disruptions to the programs. Um, and I think part of that is that for the folks coming from the United States, which I think is everyone on this call, we do have about 10% of our travelers come from outside of the United States, but that the turmoil and the changes that we see with an administration shift, I think it affects us in a little bit more of a visceral way on the home front than it does internationally, where I think other people, and in fact, I think one of our country coordinators said, we have a lot of our own issues in our country politically. So we're like more concerned about what's happening here, which in some ways is just reassuring because, I think for travelers and for folks that are visitors to the communities, that's a important, not only important part of the connections and the kind of educational experience that we're fostering, but on a macro level, it's an important part of the economy for countries. So we're not anticipating those changes. And we also passed through a similar shift in 2016 with the change of administration, with just different geopolitical stances that kind of abruptly changed. And we didn't experience any disruptions to our programs during that first administration either. So all that's to say is that we're confident that we're going to be able to move forward with all of our programs as planned. And in fact, they're happening already. So this isn't like a hypothetical guess. We have programs in the field all around the world right now. We have programs currently in China and in Taiwan and in Guatemala and Nepal. And so kind of a lot of the places that we're talking about for the summer or for upcoming programs, they're actually traveling there right now and they're not experiencing any interruption. So it's not just a theoretical thing. So it's a good question though, and one that we'll keep revisiting as as things change and come about. But we're feeling really confident that it's not going to disrupt any of the programs.
Just kind of a short follow-up to that, Aaron, is like, do we have backup plans if there are disruptions?
Yeah, like I mentioned, we have, each program is unique because we don't maybe go to the same exact communities every time. So if regionally we need to adjust to a condition like climactic or political, we can do that. We can stay longer in a place. We can move to a different community. That's definitely possible. And we definitely practice these plans. We do critical incident simulations with our administrative team every year to see what this would look like if we did need to respond dramatically to an issue. And I think a really good example of that is COVID. During the pandemic, when all this hit, we had programs in the field. We had several. I think we had like, 13 programs in the field at one time. And we needed to respond immediately to drastic changing conditions, not only from the US, but each uniquely in those environments. And so we were able to mobilize extremely quickly with the help of all those networks that I mentioned and have everybody return safely and nobody stuck in the country. So depending on those issues, like we're always proactively planning as well, like being in touch with International SOS to look at, okay, if this were to change here, what does your security evacuation service look like? And we kind of proactively plan those types of things.
Just a follow up there, it looks like about if there are disruptions, can students change locations? The short answer is yes, absolutely. And that has happened in the past where something will come up in a country, whether it, just a change or even just due to low enrollment, that can happen too. And so students have the option before courses to change. It's more complicated once a program starts. So that's kind of, I don't want to get too into the hypotheticals, but like if something was to change on the ground where we would want to reroute a program, we have done that in the past, but that's a more complicated scenario. But in the lead up to a program, that's actually something that's easy to do, to switch to a backup location.
Great. I just wanted to go up to a question that was a little bit further up. Don't want it to get missed, but it's about malaria medications for Nepal. The CDC says it, it depends on the location, but we have sample itineraries. So wondering if you could just kind of generally comment on that.
Yeah, malaria and just mosquito-borne illness in general. We're experiencing climatic changes, which are increasing the breeding area of mosquitoes and duration throughout the year. So, yeah, if it's generally recommended to have malaria medication and that if it works for you, great, go for it. Keep in mind the type of medication that is you're using. Like a lot of times we might go on a start in a malaria zone, then go on a trek in the mountains where there's no malaria for like a week or so, and then go back in. So having a medication that you're either taking for the duration of the program or that you're able to start and stop quickly, like and thinking about the side effects as well. Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
I also just want to say I dropped in the chat a link to our Yak board from last summer for the Nepal program specifically, speaking to that question. And that Yak post will be very similar for this summer because the itinerary will follow a similar flow. So have a look at that. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to let us know.
Yeah. This might be the last question for now, but it is, will the students be responsible for keeping their travel documents, such as passports, with them during the trip, or will instructors be holding them for safekeeping?
Our staff holds on to the passports for all students, along with prescription medications, just because those are two things. There's some exceptions to the prescription medication rule, so not to get too into the nuances of that, but generally those are the two things that our staff holds onto because it is such a hassle to replace a missing passport or prescription meds. So yeah, we hold on to those with the group.
Aaron, is that Heidi or is that Ramona? What's going on? You're the baby in the background.
You're hearing my baby.
That's Heidi, but Ramona was making noise earlier, so just not while I'm unmuted right now. Already, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat right now. If you all do have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll each drop our email in the chat. Just doing that right now. But we're more than happy to chat with you all. About any of these concerns, please reach out. And if you're on the fence between a couple of programs or considering Dragons, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation with you and help you, chat through the enrollment process. And if you're signed up for a program, we hope your child has an amazing experience. And thank you all for being here tonight. It was wonderful being in this space with you. Big thanks to Dave and Aaron for sharing their knowledge and expertise.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone.
Super helpful.
Have a good night.